A lot of you don't know this, but this is my second time recording this video because the first time I tried to record it, I did not hit the button that turned on my microphone, so you could not hear a single word that I said. So this is time number 2. So let's hope take 2 is better. Ever just been sitting around and wondering how college football comes up with their power index? Like, how do they get their ratings? How do they know which team is going to finish first, second, third? Like, how do they kind of detail those things? I was very curious, and so I started just digging and doing research. I wanted to actually the funny thing is the reason why I started doing this research is because I actually wanted to understand the competition that Texas is going to face in the SEC. Hook 'em. And so I actually got curious to know, like, why is Texas rated so high in the SEC right now? Like, why do they think they're going to be good? Why do they think they're going to be able to go in the SEC and win so many games? And so what that did, though, is at the same time I started to research Texas, I started to go, you know what? Wait a second. What if I looked up Colorado? What if I looked up how people were rating Colorado, what it looked like, how they came to those conclusions, and what they were thinking when they came up with the things that they came up with? And so I decided to make this video and basically do my own football power index ranking. I'm going to do this on a very small scale with the very limited research that it took me to do for a few hours. Nothing major, but it was super fun for me to go through and figure out like what I thought and how I felt, different things like that. I will tell you, if you're not somebody that likes to get a bunch of information, if you're not somebody that likes to see how someone is going to take data and make it information and then come to a conclusion, if that's not something that's up your alley, you probably won't like this video. However, I thought it would be cool for me to like use my brain a little bit to stimulate that side of me to really go through some of these things and make sense of what it's actually saying, and then figure out what that means for Colorado. At the end of this video, I'm going to figure out, or I'm going to determine if I agree with where they've been ranked or if I disagree. And so that is what this video is all about. So if you're interested in that, keep watching. If you're not, this is your sign to go ahead and turn it off. Say before I start this whole thing, there's a couple of definitions and things that I want us to get familiar with so that we're all on the same page. So I will put a lot of things up on the screen so that you can understand exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm just not talking at you. I'm actually bringing you along as I'm going through this information. So the first thing you're going to see pop up on the screen here is a football power index, what that is and how it's done. Obviously, as it says here, the ESPN created this whole system. Here's all the different ways that they measure it. And so I am actually going to cheat. And so instead of me coming up with my own measurings and analyzing teams and doing all that, what I've decided to do is bring my trusty iPad, go find my own sources of who's saying what people are saying, how people are rated what, then create my own system of how I feel like each of these things have been rated and graded, and then come up with my own conclusions on how I would rank the Big 12. I do want to be honest and say, I was really focused on the teams that Colorado were going to play against versus the entire Big 12. So a lot of the things that I say are going to be skewed to those teams that I know that Colorado is going to see this year. So just bear with me. My most detailed videos that I have, the Xavier Weaver one, which I'll put up here. Also my Donald Trump, Caitlin Clark, Coach Prime video, which I don't care what anybody says. I still feel like that was some of my best work, but there was like 23 cut-ups in that video. Spent a lot of time that here too, just in case you want to click on that. But the 3 things that I decided are going to be the most important aspect, look at different teams. Now, the list I posted before, they really broke it down. They went all in. Kudos to them. But because I'm not actually looking at film and watching players, I'm actually just going off of information that I can find. I thought the best thing for me to do was look at a couple of things. So the first thing I'm looking at is coaches' tenure, how long coaches have been there. Because if you look at a coach's tenure, you can kind of figure out how they structure their team, what kind of culture they have, how they usually play throughout the season. So I think that number one, how the coaches are, is super important. The second thing of how I decided my opinions based on how many people are returning from the team last year. So returning starters, what teams have the most returning starters? How many do they have on offense? How many do they have on defense and things like that? Third thing I really looked at to really base my decision off of, and this is why I said this is like how I'm doing this, so take it or leave it, is I actually looked at what other people were saying about the different teams. Because there's this weird thing where it's like, Everybody says a little bit different things when they're talking about the teams. That's just how this works. But it was interesting to me to read through and to see what differences and nuances and things that people were choosing. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, there's more factors, there's more this, there's more that. Yeah, I got it. However, I wanted to focus on 3 things that I could fundamentally say and point to and actually talk about. And then I wanted to actually share things on the screen so that it's understood where I'm getting my information from. I'm not just making up my information versus just seeing one side of the coin. The things I always say about Colorado fans sometimes happens is I feel like Colorado fans don't always look at the other teams they're going to play. They only look at the talent that they have. And so I didn't want to do that. I wanted to get out of my own echo chamber, and I wanted to take some time to look at other teams, to analyze other teams, to analyze other coaching staffs, look at how many players other teams had returning, and really cross compare those two and then formulate this video. So I will try to not make this video just a long run-on sentence. I will try to get to the point and focus very in. Here we go. Like this is what I'm thinking. So as I said before, there's going to be a lot of things pop up on the screen. So just bear with me. I will talk the things that are on the screen, but I also just wanted to place them on the screen so that people can see what I was talking about. So the first thing is when you look at the coaching in the Big 12, Mike Gundy has been in the Big 12 for what seems like forever. Kyle Whittingham has not been in the Big 12 for forever, but he's been with his program for 19 years. You have Kansas State, Chris Kleiman, who's been Kansas State for seems like about 5 years. And then you have UCF coach Gus Malzahn. We all know that he has not been with UCF for as long as he was with Auburn. We know his history with Auburn, but he was very successful there. We had the Texas Tech coach who's only there for, I believe, was about 3 years. And then we have Kansas with Lance Leopold, who, depending on who you ask, has had the biggest turnaround of any real big college football program, maybe over the last 10 years or so, depending on who you ask. And I already look at that, and let's say I'm doing this on a grading system. If I already look at those teams, the way that this is graded, I am going to grade certain people that have been with their school long. I'm going to give them higher points, mainly because if you've been at your school for a long time, that means a couple of things. It means that you have a winning record. It means that you have a very solid culture that people continue to believe in. It means that you have a solid program. It means that you have things in place. It means that your coaches trust you. It means that all around your administration trusts you. Your athletic director probably trusts you as well. That's kind of how I assess coaching. So if you want me to talk about coaching and where I think this stands, I think you put Oklahoma State 1, and let's say I'm giving them points. So I'll give Oklahoma State 5 points. I'll give I'll give Utah 4 points. I'll give Kansas State 3 points. And then I'll give UCF 2 points, and then I'll give Kansas 1 point. Let's just say. And that's how I'll rank it. And the second thing I mentioned at the start of this video, how many people are returning offense and defense. And so yes, I could break this down if I wanted to with special teams as well, but I decided to just go offense and defense to keep the information consistent and pure. And so what you'll see here is I'll display on the screen what we're looking at as far as the Big 12 conference. And so if you look at all the information, Oklahoma State is returning 10 offensive starters and 10 defensive starters. So I would be an idiot not to give that some credence. So the next team in line that Colorado plays this year would be Baylor. So, okay, that's cool. Solid 16 there. Sounds good. The next person in line that Colorado plays would be Utah. So they're coming in at 14. Kansas, great. And then the next team you have is Arizona. And then you have Kansas State. So again, if I was going to give this a rating and we're going to go by points based off how many people I just named, I would give everybody a certain amount of points. Now, I have only looked at 2 different ways of counting how I would evaluate teams. The first thing has been coaching staff, program, culture, system, all of those things, graded that. The second thing now has been the people that are returning on offense and defense, graded that. In those 2 scenarios so far, I don't even have Colorado in my top 5 based off experience of teams that have been there and done that. And so when I look at how other people are grading these things and knowing that these are the things that they're using, I have no reason to just put Colorado up there, even though I'm a fan of theirs. Also, that doesn't mean that they're bad. It doesn't mean that they won't be great. It doesn't mean that they can't beat some of these teams. It just means when I'm just looking at just all the data and all the outputs that I have, I don't know how I can say that Colorado would be better than the teams that I have on here. because I don't understand how you can make that comparison. And so for me, whenever I go through different websites and they have Colorado, at 10 or whatever, like I get it because they don't really know what they're going to get. And if you want to, I know how this works. The argument is always Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, NFL coaching experience. Those are the three talking points that I always get, which is great. Not taking away anything from Shedeur, not taking anything away from Travis Hunter, and I'm not taking anything from NFL coaching experience. What I am saying, though, these coaches have the experience and they've actually made it happen at the level that they're at. And because of that, I have to weigh that more than I do anything else. And that's just a fact. And that is how these things are created. And so whether or not I think Colorado is going to beat so-and-so team, or whether or not I think somebody's going to beat so-and-so team, or whether or not I believe this or believe that, it really doesn't matter because the information that I have to go off of is the information I have to go off of. I can't just make it up. It's almost like when you have a schedule and people say, well, you can only beat the team that's in front of you. That's exactly what this is. I can only give you information based off of what I've seen, the statistics that I have, based on the coaching staff that I have, and based off the things that I'm seeing. The other thing I took the time to do, and by now hopefully you should see it on the screen, is I actually went through and just listened and just read what people were saying about different programs, because I think it's super important to really understand what people are saying, why they're saying it, who the people are that they're speaking to when they say certain things, and how they're able to put things together. Because I get it. When you're a fan of a certain team, it is so easy for you to focus only on your team. But focusing on your team isn't how games are won. Focusing on other teams, understanding what other people are doing, is the way that you can kind of figure out where you fit and how that works and the different things that are going on. And so that's what you're seeing on the screen, is just the different tidbits that different people are saying about their different teams and how they feel like they should do in the Big 12. And to be quite frank, based on everything that is written, I don't disagree with anything's up there because we actually don't know. And since I know that a lot of people that are watching Colorado will watch this video, I will make sure that I add what people are also saying about Colorado. And the funny thing about what people are saying about Colorado is everything they're also saying about Colorado is true. We just don't know yet. It doesn't necessarily mean that these things are wrong. It's just that we don't know. And I think the fact that we don't know, interesting thing. Last thing I want to say here, and this has nothing to do with rankings, and this has nothing to do with most anything, but I just wanted to throw this out there because if you've made it this far, you deserve a little tidbit. So here it comes. I think we should be paying attention to what Baylor has going on. I'm not saying that I think Baylor's going to win the Big 12 this year. I'm not saying who Baylor's going to win or to lose to this year. I'm not saying anything except for, and I'll start to put their information up on the screen, except for I think we should just pay attention to what Baylor has going on. Don't know how Baylor will do this year. I don't know what Baylor has, going on as far as like the depths and how the school structure is, or not the school structure. How I don't know is culturally where Baylor is. But I will say that a lot of things that they're doing and the way that they're moving and the way that people are looking at them, there's some interesting things that Baylor has going on right now that I'm actually curious to see how they end up. Not here to say who I think Baylor is going to be. Not here to say that I think Baylor's going to win the Big 12. But I do think there are some things that Baylor is doing right now that I think we should pay a little bit more attention to if you're a fan of the Big 12 and your team plays Baylor. Because just maybe, they've made some good moves. I am a fan of the Gary Patterson move, fan of anything Gary Patterson does most times, and I think that he brings different dynamics to your team. And so kudos to Baylor. That was just my extra caveat if you've made it this far. But other than that, I would love to know what you think in the comments below about my own college football power rankings. Like that's not what this is. This is just me basically cheating, taking a little bit of information and spitting it back out and putting my own interpretation of it. But I wanted to make this video because I think it's important because you want to see your team in the top. And when I got the SEC stuff, I was shocked to see Texas was so high. I'm shocked that people are so high on Texas. As a Texas fan, I obviously know what I think Texas is bringing to the table, but I was shocked to actually see other people talking about it. And so once I took the time to dissect, I thought, why not do Colorado? Because I know people are unhappy about that ranking. And I think that the predictive analysis is right as to where it's at. And I think the way that they're predicting them to be in the Big 12, I think is right. And I think they're kind of right where they're supposed to be. And I think that that is amazing. And but this is also the fun of sports, right? Like you have the off season, they give you information, and then you go into the season, and if you liked where you're at, you want to stay there, and if you didn't like where they were at, then you want to push back and prove people wrong. So it just kind of, listen, at the end of the day, as I always say, it just is what it is.